In this chapter, I want to talk about the integumentary system. The integument is the skin which covers our body. The skin is also known as the cutaneous membrane. The integumentary system consists of the skin and its derivatives, like nail, hair, sweat gland, and sebaceous gland. On average, each square inch of our skin contains up to 20 feet of blood vessels, 650 sweat glands, 100 sebaceous glands, and over 1,000 nerve endings. Our skin is a barrier to the outside world, and it's subjected to trauma, harmful chemicals, pollutants, microbes, and damaging sunlight. Changes in the color of the skin may reflect body disorders. Skin changes or lesions sometimes reflect systemic infections and diseases. The scientific study and the treatment of the integumentary system is called dermatology. In this chapter, I want to talk about the specific layer of the integument and the tissues that compose each layer. And at the end, I will talk about the function of the skin, and I discuss the integument repair and how the integumentary system ages. The integument is the largest body organ. It composed of all types of tissue, which we discussed about it before, like the nervous tissue, the epithelial tissue, connective tissue, and muscle. The surface of our skin is covered by epithelium. After that, we have underlying connective tissue, and this connective tissue can provide strength and resilience to our skin. In this connective tissue, we have smooth muscles which are associated with hair follicle, and we call them arrector pili muscle, and I will talk about it later for you. And then we have nervous system, we have sense of touch, pressure, temperature, and pain in our skin. The skin and the integument can protect our internal body structure. It's about 7 to 8% of our body weight, and the thickness of the skin is different in different parts of our body. We have different layers in the skin. The layers of the skin are shown in this picture. The first layer of the skin, or the outermost layer, is called epidermis. The epidermis of the skin is keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. After that, we have a layer which we call it dermis. The dermis is deeper layer, and most part of the dermis is made up of dense irregular connective tissue. But we have some parts which is areolar connective tissue, and I will talk about it later for you. And deep to the dermis, we have a layer which we call it subcutaneous layer or hypodermis. This is the layer of areolar connective tissue and also the adipose tissue, and this is not a part of our integumentary system, but it can attach our integument to the underlying structures. So in this picture you have the skin with epidermis and dermis, and you can see the subcutaneous layer beneath the integument. First, I want to talk about the epidermis. The epidermis of the skin is keratinized stratified squamous, and we have different layers in our epidermis. From the basement membrane, which you can see it here, to the top or to the surface, you can see the layers which are stratum basale first. After that, we have a stratum spinosum. Then you can see a stratum granulosum. After that, we have a stratum lucidum. And the most surface layer is called a stratum corneum. In the first three layers, in the stratum basale, stratum spinosum, and stratum granulosum, you have living cells, and the name of these cells are keratinocytes. In the stratum lucidum and stratum corneum, you can see dead cells. So these are the layers which we have in the skin. And the first layer which I want to talk about is the stratum basale. Here you can see the stratum basale, the deepest epidermal layer. The stratum basale is located on this line, which is the basement membrane. And you see that this basement membrane is wavy. It's not a straight basement membrane. The other name of stratum basale is stratum germinativum or basal layer. This layer is composed of single cuboidal or low columnar cells, and these cells are attached on the basement membrane. And by this basement membrane, they are separated from the connective tissue. We have three types of cells in stratum basale. One of these cells is these purple cells. We call them keratinocyte. One of them is this brown cell, which is melanocyte, and the other cell is called tactile cell or Merkel cell. The first cell which I want to talk about is keratinocyte. The keratinocyte, as you see here, are the most abundant cell which we have in stratum basale. You can see the keratinocyte in all of the layers of the skin. They are large cells and they have the capacity to do mitotic division. Because of that, we can call them stem cells. They can do division. By mitotic division, they can make the new cell, and the new cells can come up in the upper layer of the skin. They can replace old cells which are shed from the surface of the skin. We call them keratinocytes because they are making keratin. The keratin is a protein which can make our skin become strong. In the epidermis, these cells can be called cytokeratin 2. And this keratin can make our skin become waterproof. The next cell is melanocyte. Here you can see the melanocyte in the skin. The melanocytes are scattered among keratinocytes, and the melanocyte can make melanin pigment. And this melanin pigment can be made in the response of UV light. The number of melanocytes are the same in all skin colors. So in light skin individuals and dark skin individuals, the number of melanocytes are the same. Just the metabolism of the melanin and the amount of melanin which is secreted by these melanocytes are different in different individuals. In this picture, you can see the melanocyte. Look at here. The melanocyte have many food processes, as you see here. And these feed processes are penetrated between keratinocytes of the skin. Here you can see the keratinocyte. In the melanocyte, we can see some small granules. The granules are called melanosome, and in the melanosome, we have a melanin pigment. These melanin pigment come to this feed process, and then they are engulfed by the keratinocyte and go to the keratinocyte. Pay attention, in the keratinocyte, imagine that this is one cell and this is the nucleus of the keratinocyte. The location of melanin is around the nucleus. So they are located here around the nucleus, and they can make a shield around the nucleus, so they can protect the DNA of the cell against UV radiation. And they are responsible for darker tone of our skin. So they are located around the nucleus and they can protect the nucleus of the cells. When we have UV radiation, these melanosomes start to migrate beneath the cell membrane. And because of that, when you do tanning, when you are in beach, you see that the color of your skin become darker because the melanosomes migrate, as you see here, from the internal part of the cell to the peripheral part of the cell and make the color of cell become a little darker. The other cell which we have in our skin is called tactile cell. And the tactile cell or Merkel cell are located in the stratum basale. They are few in their number and they are attached, as you see here, to the nerve endings. So they are very sensitive to the sense of touch. When they are compressed, they can release some chemicals and our nerve endings can detect these chemicals and we have the sense of touch. So this is the first layer of the skin. The first layer of our skin is called stratum basale, and our stratum basale contains keratinocytes which can make keratin, melanocytes which can make melanin, and tactile cells which are in contact with the nerve ending, and this nerve ending can detect the sense of touch. The other layer of the skin is called stratum spinosum. Here you can see the stratum spinosum. In the stratum spinosum, we have several layers of keratinocytes, and you see that the keratinocytes are polygonal cells. This layer of the skin is called a spinosome because their appearance is spiny. Look at here, you see that some small spines can attach two adjacent cells together. Actually, these spines are the desmosomes which we have between the cells. And you know that the desmosome is one of the intercellular junction which we have. The cells of a stratum spinosum are the daughter cell of the stratum basale. So when the stratum basale keratinocyte do mitotic division, when their number increase, the new cells come up in a stratum spinosum and they start to do development and they can make more and more keratin. In the stratum spinosum, you can see a large green cell here. This large cell is called dendritic cell. The other name of dendritic cell is Langerhans cell. And this is the fourth cell which we have in our skin. We have it in a stratum spinosum and also in a stratum granulosum. They are very important for doing immune response. So they are a part of our immune system and actually they are macrophages which migrate to the skin, to the epidermis. And they can respond to pathogens and epidermal cancers. The next layer of the skin is called a stratum granulosum. In a stratum granulosum, we have 3 to 5 layers of keratinocyte. This layer is granular. As you see here, we have some dots in the cell because these cells become full of keratin. The keratin starts making from the stratum basale. The amount of keratin increase and increase when we come up in the layers of a stratum spinosum. And when we reach the stratum granulosum, the amount of keratin in our cell increase. And you can see them as dots inside the cell. The process of keratinization takes place here. The keratinocyte become full of keratin. Our cell has capacity for holding this keratin, so our cells burst and the keratin, as you see here, release on the surface. Before releasing the keratin, the nucleus and all cell organelles distinguish and start to die, and the cells which are dead come to the surface of the skin, and it can make a stratum corneum, which I will talk about it later for you. So the last layer which we have live cell in our epidermis is a stratum granulosum. After stratum granulosum, you can see a very light layer which is very translucent. We call it a stratum lucidum. And this stratum lucidum contains 2 to 3 layers of dead cells. This is a clear layer. It's located superficial to a stratum granulosum, and we can see we don't have it in the other parts of our body. The cells are filled with a protein which is very clear and translucent. Protein is called L-edine, and this is the intermediate product of keratin maturation, and it can help protection of our skin against UV radiation. And you see that in the skin of the palm and skin of the soul, in dark skin individuals, we have a lighter color, and it's due to the stratum lucidum which we have in this part. And the last layer of epidermis is called a stratum corneum. This is the horn-like layer, and this is the most superficial layer which we have in our epidermis. And this is the part which we can see from the surface. In this layer, we have 20 to 30 layers of dead interlocking keratinized cells. The cells are enucleated because the nucleus is dead in this part, and all the organelles of our cells are dead, and our cells are full of keratin. The cornified epithelium contains large amount of keratin, and the keratin, as you see here, is the extracellular material which is released on the surface of the skin. So this is not a cell. This is a protein which is secreted. So we have a story for our keratinocyte. Our keratinocyte originate from the stratum basale, as you see here, from the stem cells. Then they do mitotic division. They come up and up in the layers of a stratum spinosum. In this journey, the amount of keratin in the cells increase and increase. And when we come to the stratum granulosum, the amount of keratin is too much, so our cell bursts, the nucleus of the cell dead, all the organelles go out of the cell, and you can see the release of keratin and the dead cells on the surface of the skin. The stratum corneum has dry appearance, has dry surface, and it can help our skin to be waterproof. It can protect our skin, and this environment is very unsuitable for microorganisms to grow. So we don't have any growth of a dangerous microorganism on the surface of the skin. You need to know that on the surface of our skin, we have some saprophyte bacteria. The saprophyte bacteria are the bacteria which live with us, but their population is constant all the times. When we have some skin problem, some dangerous bacteria, some pathogens enter our skin and make problem for us. But all the times you need to know that we have some saprophyte bacteria which live with us without any problem. And this stratum corneum, as you see in this picture, are shed from the skin. And you can see this shedding when you do exfoliation of the skin. So these are the different layers in our epidermis and the different types of cells. Again, in this picture, you can see the different layers of the skin. You can see first, I will talk about it in this cartoon and then in the real picture. First, you can see this wavy basement membrane which divides our epidermis and dermis from each other. This basement membrane is wavy and interdigitating because the epidermis and dermis want to hold each other very tight and firm. The first layer is a stratum basale. Then you have some layers which we call them a stratum spinosum, and you can see tiny spine which are desmosomes between the cells. After that, you have 3 to 5 layers of a stratum granulosum. Then you can see a stratum lucidum only in thick skin, and the stratum corneum, the dead keratinocyte, and also the protein, the keratin protein, which is released on the surface. And here you have the real histology picture. This is the basement membrane. It divides the epidermis and dermis from each other. And the first layer is a stratum basale. Then you have a stratum spinosum. After that, you have a stratum granulosum with darker stain because of the keratin granules in these cells. After that, we have a stratum lucidum, and the last layer, the uppermost layer, is called a stratum corneum. Our epidermis is different in different regions of our body. The thick skin is the skin of our palm of hand and sole of feet. And we have 5 layers of basale, spinosum, granulosum, lucidum, and corneum in thick skin. In the thick skin, we have sweat gland, but we don't have hair follicle and we don't have sebaceous gland. And when you check the palm of your hand and the sole of your feet, you can see that you don't have any hair and you don't have any sebaceous gland or oil gland. Because if we have oil gland here, we cannot hold any object and everything is slip from our hands, or we cannot walk normally because we sleep over all surfaces. And the thickness of this thick skin is 0.4 to 0.6 nanometer. And millimeter thickness. And the thin skin covers the most part of our body. It lacks the stratum lucidum. We don't have a stratum lucidum. We have sweat gland, sebaceous gland, and hair follicle. And the thickness of this skin is 0.075 to 0.15 millimeter. And in this picture, you can see the differences between thick skin and thin skin. And you can compare the thickness of epidermis in thick skin and the thickness of epidermis in thin skin. And pay attention to the layers of stratum corneum in thin skin and also in thick skin. Pay attention. The between the stratum corneum and stratum granulosum in thick skin, we have a stratum lucidum, but in thin skin, we don't have a stratum lucidum. You can see a stratum basale, a spinosum, granulosum, and corneum. So a stratum lucidum is not here, but you can see this lucidum in the thick skin. We have different colors for the skin. And the color of the skin is the result of three different pigments. One of these pigments is hemoglobin. The color of hemoglobin is red. One of the pigments is melanin. The color of melanin is black, brown, or yellowish brown. And we have carotene, which is yellow or orange in color. The combination of these three pigments can make a color of the skin in each individual. First, about the hemoglobin. The hemoglobin is the oxygen binding protein, which we have it in our red blood cells. When it attaches to oxygen, the color of our red blood cell become bright red. This color, the red color, is due to the blood. The red color, the red color of the skin is due to the blood vessels which we have in the dermis. So when we have vasodilation at the time of hot temperature, when we flush, you see that the color of the skin become red because our blood vessels go to vasodilation, they increase their diameter, we have more red blood cell in these blood vessels, so the color of the skin become more red. And when we are chilling in cold temperature, we have vasoconstriction. The blood vessels become smaller, less red blood cells are in our blood vessels of the dermis, so the color of our skin become pale. So this hemoglobin can change the color of our skin due to vasoconstriction and vasodilation. And we can see it easily in fair-skinned individuals and more visible when our blood vessels go to dilation. The other pigment which we have in our skin is called melanin. Look at this picture. In this picture, you can see the melanocyte. And I told you that the melanocyte has many feed process. Feed process penetrate between keratinocyte, and the function of melanocyte is making and storing melanin. It can make the color of the skin black, brown, tan, and yellow-brown shade. When this melanocyte makes this feed process, the feed process are engulfed by keratinocyte, and the melanosomes transfer to keratinocyte, and they are located around the nucleus. The amount of melanocyte, the number of melanocyte is same in all people. We have about 8% of melanocyte in all epidermis and in all individuals. But the metabolism of the melanin is different, and the amount of melanin which is produced in darker skin individual is more than the lighter skin individuals. So we have different colors. And here in the real picture, you can see the stratum basale, and in the stratum basale, you can see this brownish color due to the melanin pigment in the melanocyte. The UV radiation can stimulate the melanocyte to make more melanin. So by UV radiation, the color of our skin becomes darker and darker. And the last color which we have in our skin is due to a carotene pigment. It's yellow-orange pigment, and we can get it from the yellow-orange vegetables like carrot and squash. And this carotene accumulates in the subcutaneous fat beneath our skin, and also it can be stored in the keratinocyte of stratum corneum. So if you only eat carrots for 2 or 3 days, the color of your skin become yellow. This yellowish color is different from jaundice. The jaundice is a problem, is a disease due to metabolism and breaking of bilirubin. I will talk about it later for you. But when you eat carrots or when you eat squash, the color of your skin and also the color of the sclera of your eye become yellowish orange. The carotene in our body converts to vitamin A, and the vitamin A is very important for our vision, for reducing free radicals, because the free radicals can make cancers, and it's very important for our immunity. We have a disease which we call it albinism. The albinism is a genetic problem. It's a recessive condition, and in these individuals, we have some malfunction for the enzyme which can make melanin. So we cannot make melanin, and this person contain white hair, pale skin, and pink iris. We call it albinism. We have some marking for the skin. One of these marking is called mole or nevus. This is a harmless, localized overgrowth of melanocyte, and most of the times it's benign, it's not malignant, but we should always pay attention to the changes which we have in the size and in the border of the mole. The freckles are yellowish or brown spots on the surface of the skin, and they are the localized part in our skin where the melanocytes increase their activity. And the degree of pigmentation is based on the sun exposure, and also genetic is very important here. I will show you the picture of mole and freckles in the next video. The other problem of the skin is called hemangioma. Hemangioma is the skin discoloration due to the tumor which we have for the blood vessels. We have two types of hemangioma. One of them is called capillary hemangioma. In this disease, in this problem, we have bright red to deep purple nodules on the surface of the skin. They are present at birth and then they disappear during childhood. The other name of this capillary hemangioma is a strawberry colored birthmark. And the other problem is cavernous hemangioma. We have larger dermal blood vessels, and they remain in our body for our lifetime. And the other name of them is port wine stains. And on the surface of the skin, we have some friction ridges. Look at here. These are the friction ridges which you can see on the surface of the skin. They are, as you see here, a small conical pegs which we have in a skin. They become complex arches when we check the palm, the fingers, sole, and toes. There are large folds and valleys of dermis and epidermis. They can increase the friction on the surface of our skin. Each individual has a unique pattern of these friction ridges, and which we can use it as the personal identification or fingerprint. I will show you these pictures again in the next video.